Yes, good evening, fight fans. Jay's Fight Talk here with my No Punches Pulled co-host, friend and boxing oracle, Liam Tully, to review last night's boxing from Sheffield. First and foremost, how are we, Liam?
Yeah, all good, mate. All good. Didn't take long to catch up on the card. It wasn't the longest watch back when I finally managed to get around to seeing the fights, but good little bit of action to get stuck into.
It wasn't, but let's get straight in. We'll go with the co-main event first, which saw Sweet Caroline Dubois face off against Canada's Jessica Camara, who was given a little bit of flack in the lead up to the fight. But look, she's boxed at world level. She was confident in herself. Her team was confident. For the first time, we saw a little bit of spite from Caroline in the lead up because she'd been sort of pushed and not physically pushed, but sort of Camara was trying to get under her skin and try to get in her head. I don't know if that was for her own self-confidence or whether she thought she could get under the skin of Caroline Dubois. For me, I don't think it worked. If anything, it worked against her. We saw from the off that there was a gap in skill set, and Caroline sort of hurt her with the first shot she hit her with, really. And for her face to be like that after a round and a half, she looked like she'd gone through a 10-round war. The draw takes a little bit of the gloss off it for me, but still it was an emphatic performance, let's say, rather than victory. We can't really say victory. What do you think on it, Liam? What's your take on the round and a half we got?
I mean, first and foremost, you said there you don't know if Camara was talking herself up to try and get under Caroline's skin or if she needed it for herself. If you go off of her performance, it's clear she needed that. She needed to be loud and brash. You know what they say about nervous energies.
Yeah.
A person that talks the most is often hiding how their true emotions are about something, and Camara's performance shows that. Caroline Dubois, sensational. The first punch she landed, dropped her girl, and she just kept her foot on the gas. Obviously, I said in the lead up to the fight, I wondered if we were going to see something similar to Lauren Price and Bexy Mathias in terms of how one-sided it was.
Yeah,
it was going that way. Possibly would have finished that way. It's interesting watching it back. So I watched it back with sound on. Camara's corner are really telling her to play on the fact she can't see from that cut.
Right. So they wanted the tech draw.
They're coaching her very nicely and saying, "Excuse me, you can't see. Say you can't see." So she's being told by her corner to say,
"Don't like that."
Well, yeah, which I didn't like hearing. But I like Caroline's attitude. Look, she said that she feels like it was a victory. She said, "For me, this is a victory." Shane McGuigan said the same. That's the right attitude. And she called out Terry Harper for the March 7th card, which I don't think we're going to get Terry Harper, but I like the fact she's made a call out. She's gone out there and she said, right, you, British world champion, you've had plenty to say about me in the past. Let's dance. Whether we see it on March the 7th or not, I'm unsure, but I like
Is that from me? Sorry about that. Don't know what that was. It was something on my phone. Sorry.
So yeah, it's a good attitude to have because it would have been very easy for her to be pissed off about the fact she's dominated a fight, but it's a draw on her records. But she said, look, she's treated it as a victory, which is how she should be dealing with it, and she's setting her sights on the next fight. And I said, as long as she doesn't take any damage, there's no reason why she can't get back out at Albert Hall on March the 7th. Well, look at her. She looks as good as she did after the fight. She did when she was walking to the ring, so she'll be ready to go March the 7th.
Yeah, I mean,
Terry Harper.
I'd said that I was expecting an announcement, but Ben wasn't there to do said announcement, which I think was a ball dropped. I don't like that. It seemed a little bit disrespectful. I mean, we've seen Eddie and we've seen Frank do similar, where they've sort of tried to split the atom and have themselves in two places at once, but they always have a right-hand man. Frank's got Francis and George. Eddie's got Frank Smith. Ben just didn't turn up. And it wasn't a good look for me. I mean, he's missed it for a magazine's award night, and I know Turkey owns it, and I know they're all there trying to negotiate deals, but come on, mate, you've got two of the bigger names in your stable. let's not beat around the bush. Simpson and certainly Caroline Dubois.
Two of his three biggest names. Well, four.
She's one of his world champions. One of his few world champions. To not be there, for me, is a little bit disrespectful. For a magazine's awards night, and it's the first one as well. Turkey's had the magazine less than 6 months. He's put on an awards evening, this big glitzy black tie event in London, but ultimately it's a magazine award evening. It's not even a sanctioning bodies award evening or something like that. It's a magazine. That's like a manager missing a Premier League football manager missing a cup game for 442's award night or match or shoots award night for me, because they're a sports magazine. I know it's a little bit more than that because Turkey's there and they want to negotiate fights, but I mean, who was there last night that commanded Ben's presence that much that he misses the fight? I don't. He could have sent a representative for me to the awards night and been ringside. It was a little bit of a kick in the teeth for them too.
Yeah, I mean, I thought we were going to get into this in a little bit, but as we come on to it, look, for me, I won't mince my words. It's piss fucking poor. Yep. You don't have the biggest stable in the world right now. You're also in the final 16 months of your Sky Sports contracts that, look, we know from hearing things, Sky ain't happy. They're not exactly blown away with the Boxer products. This is year 4 of Boxer. And let's be honest, you can probably name 3 or 4 big fights they've done in that time. And that's a massive come down from Matchroom, which we knew it would be, but there hasn't been any real upward trajectory. For him to miss his first card of the year
it's not a good look, man.
I don't like it, mate. I don't like it. Callum Boxer put a video out of Callum Simpson on FaceTime to Ben Shalom. And it's like, yeah, that's great. He's had a conversation with him, but why is he in? Why is he in his duck suit at an award ceremony instead of being actually at the fight doing his job as the promoter? And the fact that he doesn't seem to have a right hand man or woman, as we should say, in this day and age.
Know where I am, Ben. I've been calling it for a while, Ben. I'll help you, mate.
But there was no other
focus. Can do your marketing as well. We've got a little team here, mate.
We do, but there was no other focal point there. At least if Eddie's doing a show in America
Frank's
or a show
there,
in the UK,
or vice versa, there's always somebody there.
Frank Warren doesn't always do the York Hall shows nowadays for different reasons.
Francis will be there.
Age and stuff plays a part in it, and he limits his travelling. So George is always ringside, or Francis, and they do that. That's how it works. It just didn't look right. And if I'm Dubois and Simpson, I'm pissed off with it because my promoter hasn't turned up. And it's all well and good posting a 20-second video of Ben on FaceTime with Callum.
That's not the same.
Oh, yeah, right. Now we need to keep our foot on the gas. Well, you're not here.
Should have been there, mate.
Yeah.
If it's that important, you would have been there.
Yeah. But going back to the Dubois fight, look, it's a shame it's a draw. We don't need to see a rematch. The only thing that can shaft any plans is if the WBC decide on an immediate rematch. I pray they won't. But if there's one governing body that do batshit things like order immediate rematches, it's the WBC.
I think her team, the way you said that they were sort of hounding her to say she couldn't see to play on the tech draw. I think they might lobby for an immediate rematch just to get another payday. But I'll tell you what I have seen today. I've seen Terry Harper dig out an old tweet that Caroline had tweeted about after she'd lost, saying, I don't see
Sandy Ryan. That was after the Sandy Ryan fight.
Yeah, I don't see a way back from this. And then all the irony, see you soon, girl. And then I think Caroline had put something like see you the 7th of March and put a pen emoji, sign the contract. For me, that's the fight to make. They're both world champions. They're both Brits. Yeah, I'd love to see that fight. I don't know whether that would headline in its own right as a big fight or whether they'd put that on another card. It could headline, but it's only going to fill a venue like it did like last night, 3,000 to 5,000. No disrespect to either of them, but I don't think either of them could fill 10,000 on their own as a headline. I just don't think the fight's big enough to the masses. For me, it's a massive fight, but for the masses as such, it'd have to be teamed up with 2 or 3 more big fights for it to justify like a Manchester Arena Or maybe Sheffield or Leeds, maybe.
Possibly. I mean, for me, there's one reason Terry Harper steps over the divide from Matchroom and goes over to Boxer, and you know what I'm going to say? It's to be on the Albert Hall card. That's the only reason for me that Steffi Ball and Terry will say, fine, we'll fight on Boxer, because that Albert Hall card, International Women's Day weekend and all of that, they're building something. So I can understand her being a part of that. So that's why I think it's going to be on March the 7th. If it's not, you're more likely to see it happening in Saudi, for example, which it shouldn't.
Yeah.
Or it happens on a Matchroom show where you get similar to what we got in Birmingham with Tyler Denny and Felix Cash and that sort of vibe. The only way we see a clear jump across from Terry Harper will be to be at the Albert Hall.
Do you think they could put it as part of a Boxer versus Matchroom, sort of on a 5v5 kind of thing? Because that then, you know, it takes away, because obviously both of them are going to see their girl as the headline, and then neither are going to want to sort of forgo any A side, and I think that's going to be the only stumbling block. Neither of them wanting to give any way and be on the other one's platform. So I think the way around that is to have it as part of a 5x5, and then it's sort of neutral territory as such, isn't it? And it's normally in Saudi or somewhere like that.
Yeah, I think for me, if it's not on the Albert Hall cards, it's on a 5v5. We know Turkey is very keen to push this Eddie and Ben needle, isn't he? And he said he wants to do he said he wants it to be a UK one. UK wants to, however, whatever guys that's going to form. But if it's not on the Albert Hall cards, it will land on a 5v5 Saudi somewhere. But as I said to you on our when we done a preview on Friday night, Ben isn't blessed with a lot of female fighters. And that's not being disrespectful. That's
male or female.
Yeah. That's well, he's got even less female than he's got male, and that's just being realistic with the situation. Yeah. You've advertised, look, this Albert Hall show is going to be groundbreaking. It's going to be legendary. When he done a female fight card before at the O2, he had Baumgardner against who was it? Baumgardner and Michaela Mayer, and he had Clarissa Shields and Savannah Marshall, and that was two of enough fights for Lauren Price was on it in like a third fight. Artingstall was on it in similar, but they had two big fights. Dubois and Harper then, if that goes on the Albert Hall card, does the same thing. You've got Price and Jonas, Dubois and Harper, and then the rest of your card, you get Artingstall out. You're probably going to see Shannon Courtney back for what that's worth, but that's kind of the way it's going to go, because at the moment you can't tell me if you have that main event and then Artingstall, etc., fighters of that ilk, it's going to be anything. You need that Caroline Dubois Harper fight, and that's why I think Terry will be happy to come over to Boxer. And remember, Baumgardner is a Matchroom fighter, so Matchroom have done it before to facilitate these female cards, so it's not like they'll stand in the way of it for me. I think they'll be happy to let Terry do it, to be on that stage.
Yeah, I hope so. I hope so, because we're at a point now where we are starting to see more fights made between, you know, sort of cross-promotion fights and in and out of Saudi. You know, we are seeing fighters, like you said, Felix Cash and Tyler Denny. And, you know, so I'm hoping that we don't see politics, as we have done over the years, scupper a potential big fight. Because in terms of UK female boxing, it's the biggest fight, really, other than, you know, sort of the likes of Katie Taylor. I know she's Irish, but we still hold her as one of our own in terms of British. Other than her, Tasha Jonas, I mean, outside of that, Caroline Dubois certainly staking her claim for one of Britain's biggest female fighters in terms of profile and, you know, what she's done and what she could go on to do. Shane McGuigan is saying she could be a three-weight, three-division champion. I think you said that prior to him saying that.
Yeah, I said I feel she can move up through it, and Shane's come out and said it. So it's that tennis in the post, mate. I'll get it across to you.
No problem, mate. It'll be a rubber check. It'll bounce.
The last thing I'm going to say on it is Caroline Dubois is a London girl. Albert Hall in London, so it fits the bill. But more to the point, for Matchroom or Boxer, the only way you get this fight is if it's a main event, if that makes sense. Yeah. So, but building a card around it is difficult, if you understand what I mean. Matchroom, it's a tough sell to That's no disrespect. The
It'd
reality
have
is,
to be big fights, and potentially you run the risk of having some of the undercard fights being bigger than the main event.
and that's what they won't want to do. So the only way I can see this being settled is it being as a co-headline on the Royal Albert Hall. That's the only way I think that will be good money for both girls. It will be treated like the one at the O2 was back in 2022, where they get co-billing, even though we know Price and Jonas is the main event. It's the only way I can see it working. And Ben needs it. Those Albert Hall tickets are not shifting. I had another look the other day because it's local to me. It's a Friday night. I'm thinking about going down, depending, I want to see more of the card announced, but this is what they need. They need more fights announced. Otherwise, the Albert Hall is going to be a very quiet place.
Yeah, I agree. Hawkins joined us. Yes, Hawkins saying that Baumgartner's a free agent and Caroline Dubois versus Baumgartner is the fight to make. What do you think about that?
I can see that fight being made, but I think she'll want to go Terry Harper first, especially now we know there's a bit of needle between them on social media, which is great.
She said it herself. She stated it herself. I mean, Baumgartner's a massive fight, but ultimately Baumgartner, as Hawkins said there, she's a free agent. There's a reason why she'll be a free agent. She's obviously not a massive draw. It's a great fight. It's a tough fight, but it will not. I mean, we've just been talking about how they can build a card and where they can put the fight on versus Terry Harper. They're two of the biggest names in British female boxing. So the Baumgartner fight will be an even tougher sell. And I could see that even further down another card, which is not what she wants. She said herself and stated on more than one occasion that she wants to fight Terry Harper. Terry Harper, for me, is the kind of girl that will fight anyone, anywhere. As you said, there's a little bit of needle, a little bit of friction. They've had a couple of interactions on social media, so there's an easier sell there. I think it's a bigger fight. And will garner interest, or more interest than the Baumgartner fight. I get where Hawkins coming from. Baumgartner's a massive name, world champion, and it's a great fight. But I see that for me, the Harper fight is the one to make next, and is easier to make and has a bit more to offer in terms of the wider audience.
Agree with everything you just said, mate. I think from a UK perspective, and again, going back to trying to make this Albert Hall show as big as possible, Terry Harper is more of a name to a UK audience than Baumgartner is, regardless of the fact that Baumgartner has beaten Harper in the past before. That comes back at us. That is true. It makes the most sense for it to be Terry Harper. There's a world title belt on it. It will give Dubois 2 of the 4 belts in the division, and then she's got a choice to make about does she pursue Beatrice Ferreira or does she then look to move up and take on Baumgartner? That's the reality of where she's at.
Yeah, Hawkins again. He reckons Matchroom want to make Beatrice Ferreira versus Terry Harper next. Yeah, I'm hearing that too, Hawkins. The only sort of spanner in that works is that Harper and Dubois are both calling for the fight. So I believe if they do really want the fight and they ask the right people behind closed doors, as me and Liam have said on more than one occasion, it's an easier fight to make. And the Ferreira fight's not going anywhere. I think she's got a homecoming in Brazil next. Can't see Harper or Dubois going out there to get shafted by judges. I'm not saying Brazil is dodgy. I was being flippant, but I just think it's I wouldn't fancy boxing her on her home turf. I'd rather see them box somewhere like Saudi or back here, but obviously that's British bias. So yeah, look, the lightweight division has 3 or 4 fights that can be made at the top end. All the belts are there, all the champions are easy enough to negotiate with. So I think we will see some of those. I think we will see either, at least one of the couple of fights that we've spoke about, maybe Baumgartner and Ferreira and Harper and Dubois. Maybe we have semi-finals and, we have the big unification undisputed fight later on in the year. I don't know. Your guess is as good as mine. And as you say, Ben should have been there last night to answer these questions, and he wasn't, which for me is he's missed a trick. He's missed a massive trick last night. They could have spoke to Ben. Ben could have answered some of the questions about the Harper negotiations and set something up for us to then get our teeth into moving forward. But doing a FaceTime with Callum Simpson for 20 seconds, 15 minutes after the final bell is poor form for me. So yeah, I'm excited to see what's next for Dubois, Harper, Baumgardner, and Ferreira. So yeah, fingers crossed for some big fights for those ladies in the coming months.
Yeah, I mean, look, we just spent 10 minutes trying to second guess what is going to happen, which shows we don't know. But what we would both like to see happen is, look, I want Caroline Dubois on that Albert Hall card regardless. It's probably likely to make me spend, I think the cheapest tickets are 30 quid. If Caroline Dubois goes on that card, I will potentially spend 30 quid just to have another opportunity to watch her, if that makes sense. Because I think she's a fantastic fighter, as I've said on countless occasions. But if you put her in with Terry Harper, then do you get what I mean? There's a level to it. We don't want to see another Jessica Camara type fight. We want to see another step up, and that's what Terry Harper represents.
Yeah, there's not many other opponents I'd want to see outside of those two or three for Dubois. There isn't anybody else you put her in with. It's just she's picking up money. She's picking up another win, because there were people on our lives and videos over the past week or so that had sort of bigged up Jessica Camara's chances, and because I'd been a little bit dismissive and you'd been a little bit not so much dismissive, but we were favouring Dubois quite heavily, and we were called out on that by a couple of people, and we were proved right. I know it was a draw, get that, goes down as a draw on paper, but I can't say I've ever seen a fighter in boxing, certainly in females boxing, 2-minute rounds pro game, look like that after, 30 seconds into the second round?
Yeah, let's get it right. It was a draw. So we're doing everything how it's written down. But the reality is that fight was headed in one direction. And if it headed in a direction, then my prediction, I would have had one of those moments that Sam would go on about for 6 months where the prediction was bang on. I feel like it was going in that direction, if that makes sense. But
yeah,
we're at where we're at. The most important thing is the cut isn't to Caroline. She's in good nick. She'll be back out March the 7th.
She could fight next week, couldn't she? If we're honest.
We'll talk about that when we find out more information. But yeah, we'll move on. Should we talk about Callum Simpson?
Let's talk about the main event. So the main event saw Callum Simpson defending his British and Commonwealth super middleweight belts against Steed Woodall. Now, myself and Liam and Sam in the build-up, no punches pulled, and a couple of preview videos that we've done were again dismissive of an opponent's chances in this fight. We actually got called out by some members of Woodall's family to say how wrong we were and to get ready. And look, they've still got a little bit to say, probably, because for me, the stoppage was early. It was strange. I think he sort of wobbled and the ref had already made his decision. And then by the time he stepped in, Steed was actually moving forward to engage again. It was crazy. But look, ultimately, Callum Simpson got the win, got it early, as we'd all predicted. But, Woodall can come again based off of that performance. Because for me, yes, he would have got stopped, but he can always say it was stopped early. What do you think about the stoppage, Liam? What's your take on it?
Before I go in on the stoppage, because I'm going to go on it, Callum Simpson has power. I said it during the week, and a lot of it was dismissed as, well, we haven't really seen it in fights. But we hadn't seen it, but we've seen him break opponents down. He should have taken out Zach Gilly last summer at Oakwell. Didn't manage to do it, but we saw the power was there. What we saw last night was Callum carry his power. And that's what we now want to see as he moves towards European world level, because that's the direction he needs to go in. So first of all, a clinical knockdown, and he was on his way to getting a clinical stoppage. Mark Bates needs to be put before the board of control and made to explain his decision. Now, that sounds extreme, but let's look at it like this. Just for a second, imagine this wasn't a British and Commonwealth title fight, and it was for the undisputed middleweight world championship. And that's how the fight stopped. You got 2 belts each, and that's how Callum Simpson becomes the undisputed world champion. There would be even more uproar than we've seen.
Yeah.
That's the type of stoppage you make. Let's think of an example. When Anthony Joshua was having his, first 10 fights, and he was beating the brakes off of everyone because they shouldn't have been in there with him. Those were the types of stoppages we were seeing from refs. Or he's taken too many punches now. Let's save him. He's not here for that. Let's save him. That's that level of stoppage. This is a British and Commonwealth title fight, and Mark Bates has watched Steed Woodall throw a punch as he's jumping across. The last action of the fight is Steed Woodall landing a right hook.
Yeah.
Yes, he's been dropped. Yes, he's been hurt. Yes, his legs have done a funny dance and he bounced from one set of ropes to another set of ropes. But cognitively, he was still there. And it can't be shown anymore by the fact he was throwing a punch as the referee's diving in across him. It's a real shame because instead now, for Callum Simpson, the talk's going to be about the stoppage. Look, Steed Woodall, good evening to your friends and family. Your boy was on his way to losing that fight and he was going to get stopped more than likely from what we were seeing in front of us. That's the reality. And I know you agree with me, mate. But we were denied of that by the referee jumping in early. Do this, do that. I completely understand it. But he's still throwing punches. It's not as if he's been... It's difficult to explain. It's not like it was an Anthony Joshua situation against Ruiz where he'd already been down 3 times. He was looking vacant and he wasn't giving Michael Griffin, the Canadian referee, a chance anything to say he wanted to carry on. That was a fair enough stoppage. Woodall was still throwing punches. I think he was on his way out, but not in that round. He was on his way out of the fight, most likely.
Yeah.
It's just a shame, man, because we are now talking about...
We're talking about that rather than the performance. It takes a little bit off. I mean, to be fair, he went down pretty heavy. When I saw he got up at 9, they said he got up at 8. He got up at 9. Yeah. I was half thinking he's not going to make this. I thought, is he going to stay down? But he did. He did what you're supposed to do. He took as long as possible to regain his cognitive function, to get his equilibrium back. Intake of air. And go again. And I've watched the stoppage 4 or 5 times now. He was actually on the offensive when he got stopped, which, if I know he got caught clean again just before the exchanges that led up to the stoppage. But like, as you say, if he was taking excessive headshots, if he was wobbling all over the place, then the stoppage would be justified. But for me, he was in the fight still. Yes, it looked like it was going one way. But how do we know that, he couldn't pull off an uppercut himself, and knock out Simpson? We can't, and we'll never know that. But, for me, it just leaves not a sour taste in my mouth, because it's not like Groves Frotch, where Groves is winning and then gets a bit of a stoppage that Howard Foster jumped the gun a little bit for me, and I think he saw some of George Groves' body movement as him being hurt, because he has that herky-jerky style, doesn't he? He had his head down, and it looked like he was sort of wobbling, and he was and he wasn't. But, Callum Simpson was beating him up. First round was a Simpson round for me. It wasn't a massacre, but then once he caught him, like you said, he had the power seemed to lie with him. He caught him with an uppercut, then a hook, then an uppercut, and dropped him. Second round, they come out, they engage. Simpson goes again, catches him again. He goes back a little bit, but he's also not as hurt as he was in the first round. He's throwing back. His legs seem underneath him. So, yeah, it was a strange one for me. And, I mean, Woodall could have an argument for a rematch. Don't think he'll get it. I don't think he'll get it. Certainly not next, but, he might get to... If Woodall goes on and wins belts or wins fights, and 4 or 5 years down the line, we could see this fight again. But for me, we won't see it again for a while.
Mate, we're not going to see it again. Let's be really honest. Another thing Mark Bates has done last night is ruin what could potentially be Woodall's only chance of ever becoming a British champion. That's not dramatic at all. Because Steed Woodall is going to have to go and rebuild. He got that opportunity off of the one shot in a fight he'd been losing for 5.
I think that's where he'll go.
5 completed rounds against Richards. He's now just had his dropped heavy, not really thrown at any punches in anger, and been stopped. That's all people will look at. They won't look at the optics of it was an early stoppage, which it was. They'll look at the optics of how the fight went. If he wants to come again now, Woodall, he will have to rebuild. And by the time he's rebuilt, Simpson ain't going to be at this level anymore. Put it this way. If we ever see it again, it has to be for these belts. You couldn't sell to me Callum Simpson against Steed Woodall for let's say, an interim world title. Let's be really honest.
Not unless Simpson vacates and Woodall ends up cleaning up. That's what I'm saying. We'd have to see Woodall be in a position where he offers something. At the moment, he didn't offer anything last night other than a challenge for Simpson's belts. But Simpson said he wants to win it outright. So what? He's going to go defend it again, win it outright, and he'll vacate then, won't he? So if Steed, for example, wins the British and Commonwealth, wins it outright, wins the European, and then we could potentially see this. I got stopped early, I would have beat you, blah, blah, blah. Then we could potentially see it again. I don't think we will. I don't think we'll ever see that fight again. I think Woodall has found his level. No disrespect to Team Woodall and his family, but, I said this beforehand. Irrespective of his extensive amateur background, irrespective of him traveling America, fighting in all the gyms and boxing and mixing it with some of the best. I've seen that firsthand. I've got a family member that was an elite amateur, part of the initial Team GB setup, one of the first amateurs to get paid so that he could concentrate on boxing, was lauded as going to be the next big thing, turned over as a professional, did everything he needed to do to get to, I think it was 14, possibly 16-0, and we had him destined to be a world champion. Came up against the British champion that I'd personally watched him beat the brakes off in sparring, and then had to sit there and watch him get his ass whooped. I think he got knocked down 6 times and eventually got stopped. So, being an elite amateur doesn't necessarily always translate. Luke Campbell, one of the best amateurs we've ever had.
Don't count.
Frankie Gavin, one of the best amateurs we've ever had. I think more Gavin than Campbell, but Frankie Gavin flattered to deceive in the pros and never fulfilled his potential. I think he got the wrong fights at the wrong times, possibly mismanaged, made some bad decisions himself, but for whatever reason, it didn't translate across. Billy Joe Saunders didn't really pull up any great shakes as an amateur. Yes, he went to the Olympics. Yes, he got sent home, but was fantastic as a professional.
One of my favourite performances of all time is Billy Joe against Lemieux in Montreal.
Oh, mate, just there that for me.
And what makes it better is the fact it was in Canada. It would have been great to see it in the UK, but the fact he went there,
it wouldn't have been as big.
Yeah,
if he hadn't done it in Canada, I don't think it'd have been as big. The noise it made because of the way that he just dealt with him.
Yeah, mate, you're right, and everything you said there is right. But Woodall now needs to go away, have a long, hard look in the mirror. He's 31, 32, I believe. He's got to decide, does he want to come again? Does he believe he can get back to this level? If he does, let's see where he is after he's had 3 or 4 fights. Callum Simpson, however, look, there's 2 people out there. So Mark Jeffers was slated to fight Callum Simpson back in 2023. Jeffers got injured, had to vacate the Commonwealth, I think it was. And that's part of the reason where we now have the jigsaw where Callum Simpson's ended up with the belts. So that's a fight that both men have said they want and can see that being made. He's also called out Liam Cameron. I said, come on then.
I mentioned that in the week, if you remember.
Which, again, that's a Yorkshire derby.
Do it.
If they want to go back to Oakwell in the summer.
Oh, they're not filling it though. We've got to be right.
Mate.
It's a 20. No, I'm not saying you are. I didn't mean you. Sorry. The way they were talking about it last night, right? I know Callum sells good tickets, right? But selling 2,000 tickets, right, is different to selling 25,000 tickets, right? I don't believe that Cameron versus Simpson. I don't believe Cameron versus Whittaker would sell out Oakwell. It's about a 25. It might be more than that. It's at least a 25,000 seat stadium.
23,280.
23, right? So it's big.
He's doing 10.
Big.
He'll do 10. I reckon if it's Liam Cameron, that will do 10K. But another thing you've got to bear in mind. Card. Yeah, and the only way you get a decent card, and Ben Shellon will not let this happen, is if he crosses over to Queensbury, because that's who Liam Cameron's now with, because Queensbury can make a very, very good card around that fight, which boxing will struggle to do because of the fighters they have. So that's the path I want to see him going. If it's Oakwell and Liam Cameron makes sense, look, I think there's a reason he's called out Liam Cameron as well. Bearing in mind, Liam Cameron's up at 175.
He knows he'll beat the shit out of him.
Yeah. 1, he'll have to beat the shit out of him. 2, I think there's already been some conversations going on, and Liam said he's happy to try and get himself down to 168. I mean, look, He's a 160 at best. He's just
If Liam can't get himself down to 168 for a big fight, then something's wrong. Like as you said, he's a career middleweight. He's just been out of the ring a long time, and you know, it's easier for him to fight at 175, but he's not a natural 175. He's got a lot of flesh around the stomach. If he boils down, 168 should not be a problem for him. But
I think in reality,
Simpson's. I think, sorry to cut you out, but 1 second, but I did say that, and you'd said that Simpson's boxed at 181, 180, 176. 175 is a natural weight division for me, for Callum Simpson. I think he'd be better at 175. I just think he'd have even more power and even more strength. So, yeah, for me, it's an easy fight to make.
Look, I would rather see Callum Simpson fight Jeffers, if I'm being honest, because that's a fight that should have happened. And I was intrigued about that matchup at the time. And I think it makes sense more. Liam Cameron, if Liam Cameron loses, regardless of what we know about him, we know he said, "Oh well, I've been campaigning at 175 since I came back. I just wasn't the right weight for me." You and I know that's bollocks because we know where he can realistically be at, but you've got that ready-made narrative. So he wants to win the British belt outright. So that was what's he done? He won it against Chile. That's his first defense. Realistically, he's got
two more.
Jeffers and Cameron for those two to get the 3 if he comes through both fights makes sense. Do I think Cameron is the more likely for the stadium? Yes, because it's South Yorkshire versus South Yorkshire. You can sell that narrative, but I wouldn't surprise me to see that in the summer. And if he comes through it, he fights Mark Jeffers either in Sheffield in the arena or even on another card in Manchester or somewhere before the end of the year. That's the reality. But very impressed again with Callum Simpson. Just gutted for him for 2 reasons. One, he was denied that finish that he wanted because of the referee. And 2, his interaction with his promoter who wants to help him was for a flipping phone screen as opposed to
that for me took something away from Simpson. Also the fact that I nearly started sobbing on the stream myself when the emotion afterwards, and I'd watched the video about his sister. Obviously, I don't know him personally, but I know people that do. So I'm sort of a couple of degrees removed from being best mates with Callum Simpson. But no, in truth, look, if you couldn't feel the emotion, the outpouring of emotion post fight, then you've got a swinging brick instead of a heart. You could see what it meant to him. He had, I think she's called Lily Ray. I apologise if I've got that wrong. Her name was on his shorts. I think it was his brother that was with him as well, because they looked like twins. But I think he said he's one of 6, or he's got 6 siblings. There's a lot of them, but the mother was there. I think his dad was there. They were all there, and they were all crying. And first thing he did when he won was point to the sky and stuff. It was beautiful to see, and also for that, it was Callum Simpson's biggest night for various reasons. For his promoter not to be there, does that say to Simpson he don't really give a shit about him? I don't think it's that strong, but you could see it that way.
Before I answer that shallow question, to reflect on that moment, so his sister passed, I believe it was under a month after he won the British and Commonwealth at Oakwell. So she was there at Oakwell.
Was it illness or an accident or something?
I think it was illness. I'll be honest, I haven't looked into it fully, and I wasn't watching last night, so I didn't see the video. But she was there at Oakwell because one of the photos he had with him was her with the British and Commonwealth belts in the photo with him after that fight. So she was there for that.
Yeah.
And obviously this tragic thing happened. So look, fair play. August, September, December, January. 5 months later, back in the ring fighting. But let's be honest, he's been in the gym for 2 months. So after 3 months to get yourself back into a training camp and fighting, when that's happened unexpectedly, which is what we know, it wasn't. She hadn't been ill and knew about it. It was an unexpected passing. So that's fair play. That's a lot of fighters would probably still be out of the ring and still be coming to terms with it. That's, when Darren Barker lost his brother Gary back in the day, he took almost a year out of the ring afterwards to get his head around it before he came back into box, didn't he? It's a fair play to come back to it. To answer your question about Ben, I think Callum will be all right because thanks to Ben Shalom, he's now got a platform. He's picked up belts. He's moving in the right direction. He'll be pissed off, and I reckon he'll say to Ben, don't do that again kind of thing. Like, look, you're my promoter. I want you there with me. But because Ben's delivered for him in a way that Callum couldn't see happening before he had the boxer link up, I don't think it's catastrophic in that sense. But it wouldn't be something I'm too happy about. If that was me in there, I would be, a FaceTime call or not, I'd be having words the next time we speak.
Yeah, I'd be disappointed myself. I'd be disappointed that my promoter's not there on the biggest night in my career. But I'm not a boxer. It was a great performance. He got the win. Yeah, there's a little bit of controversy. When isn't there a bit of controversy? I think I ended my stream early on the co-main event because I had it muted and didn't realise it was a draw. I was singing Dubois' praises. Medshaw didn't do that for the main event. Stayed till the bitter end. I think they were cleaning the stands and mopping the floors by the time I ended the stream, just in case they came out and made an announcement that there was a technical draw. I'm very excited for what the future holds for Callum Simpson. Obviously, he sells a lot of tickets, looks the part. He's making all the right moves, making all the right noises, doesn't shit talk that much. Seems a decent enough personality, and I think his skill set gets him through. And the fact that he sells a lot of tickets, I agree with what you're saying. I think, it might be a little bit pissed off and have a word in Ben's ear, but, Ben can always use the excuse that he was there negotiating on his behalf or lobbying some of the sanctioning bodies on his behalf. Look, let's look at some potential other opponents for Ben. What about the European champion, the unbeaten, what's he called? The kid who beat Jack Cullen. Do you know what I'm on about?
Yeah, hold on, I'll get up, because this is going to bug me as well.
Because at first I was like, I've never heard of this kid. And then when I looked at his record, I'm like, oh shit, yeah, he's the kid who stopped Jack Cullen. He's called, it's a double barrel surname. He's had it since 2021, I think. He's called.
Kevin Lelis Sedejo.
There you go.
Yeah.
Do you remember him beating Jack Cullen?
Yeah, I do remember that. That was on a pay-per-view card, wasn't it, or something? But anyway,
he's unbeaten. I think it's something like 26-0 or something like that.
Yeah, he is unbeaten. He's 26-0. That was on the second Parkage resort.
Is he 26-0? Yeah.
24-0. Look, it's an interesting one, and I was banging the drum for him pushing towards European level. But I think he's probably being sensible and at least having one more British title defence before he move up.
Oh, no, I didn't mean next. I want him to win the British outright anyway, because that's what he wants to do.
European's the route to go, mate.
Yeah.
Regardless of who the champion is, regardless of
traditional route.
European's the route to go, and I think that's the route he wants to go. He wants to do it properly. I only think he'll bypass that if he gets offered something massive to make him go.
Yeah, and I'd like to see him do it traditionally because it's a good benchmark for yourself as well. The gap sometimes from world to domestic is too big a gap to bridge for some fighters. I'm not saying that's the case with Callum. We would never know until he's put in that position. But I'd rather see him tick off the boxes and do it the traditional route, because there's a reason why. It's the next level up. It's like, going from League One to the Premier League. Sometimes it works. Dele Alli did it, for example. But look what happened to Dele Alli. You're better off maybe going to Championship. Football teams do it, don't they? They'll buy players from League One and then they'll loan them out to the Championship or some of their lower, the academy players. They'll farm out because there's a reason that they do that. To go from academy to Premier League is difficult. And I believe that to go from domestic to world level is difficult. So I would like to see Callum fight a European level fighter first, because he has only boxed at British level, if we're honest. He hasn't really boxed at world level. I know he's boxed some.
He's not, mate. He's not. Is it like the best example of the concept for anyone watching? Look at Ish Davis. Ish Davis's best win wasn't for a British title, but is at British level against a friend that we've had on the channel, Troy Williamson. He then made the jump up against Boachuk, and we know he done it for the money, but that's the difference. Boachuk is a spiteful mofo and, really stuck it on him. And that's what that jump is. Ish took it for the money. We understand that.
Yep.
And I'm sure if Callum was offered the opportunity to go out to Saudi and earn a boat ton of money, he would go and do it. But the reality is he's talking about wanting to build the right way. and it can only benefit him. But I think one other thing I will say about the card, mate. I don't really know what to say about it, mate, because it was paper thin anyway. We knew it was a really bad card without being disrespectful, but the fact that Caroline Dubois was ring walking at 9:15 pretty much, and the card only came on air at 7:30, and there'd been 2 fights, kind of tells you everything you need to know about that card. And at the moment, unless Ben, is going to make some announcements this week, Adam Azim against Lipinets in a couple of weeks is looking the same. You've got that main event. You've got Vidal Riley and Isaac Chamberlain. You've got Jamie TKV fighting, who's, but that's what I mean. You've got those top 2 fights, and then it looks like it's going to be a massive drop down again. And this is the stuff that Sky won't be happy with. Because even when Eddie Hearn done a run-of-the-mill fight night in a fighter's hometown, so let's go Ant Crawler, you're at a load of those fight nights, or Lewis Ritson when he was on his way up, it would still be a 7-8 deep card with decent enough fights on. What we saw last night was a 5-fight card. No. Sorry, it was a 6-fight card in general, 4 fights on TV. It just wasn't a good product. And that's something boxing really needs.
And we did. Sorry to interrupt, but I've just realised the 4 televised fights I don't think any of them went past the second round. We had, was it Howells and that had 3 knockdowns in the first, didn't it?
Yeah, they all ended in the second.
Then we had Forrest knocked out. What was his name? Moore. He came out to Squid Game with his mask on and shit, and he hurt Forrest, and then he got dropped. Then it looked like he'd hurt Forrest again, and then he got dropped. I think Forrest boxes out of Scotland, but it's a South African, isn't it? He looks strong, solid. He had muscle on top of muscle. I mean, yeah, and I know we like to see stoppages, but I don't think it did Boxer any favours, those 4 fights ending so quickly, because, as you said, you can only fill for so long, and then you've got to get the fighters out because people zone out. So the fight card was done by 9:15.
So on the TV, you got Sam Hickey that won his second fight in a round. You then got Scott Forrest and Devron Miller, which is fight you've just been talking about. That was done in the second.
Yeah.
Dubois and Camara was over in the second. It's classed as a third round because they do the scorecards, which is bollocks.
Stupid.
Second rounds. And Simpson and Woodall, which was premature, yes, but was also second round. So, yeah, look, it doesn't look good. It's not the sexy products that Sky are used to. So, Ben, you need to, 1, be there for your fighters, and 2, we need to see some better fight cards.
We do. Ben, you know where we are. Pick up the phone. We've got 2 marketing geniuses here, and I can be the right-hand man. I'd have been there ringside. I'd have been making fights for Callum and Caroline last night. Yeah, but no, I mean, first card of the year. He didn't. There were no upsets. There were no. There could have been a couple of banana skins. Both his champions came through unscathed, barely a mark on them. I don't think Caroline took a shot. Simpson took maybe 5 shots, nothing of any great note. I believe that both of them could box again next week if they needed to. I'd like to see them both out there again this quarter. I don't think we need to start letting the grass grow underneath the feet. I think we need to see these 2 out again. Caroline, as we said, I'd like to see her out in March. Excuse me. Callum, if they're going to make a big fight, Ben Whittaker's not said anything real. I mean, he came out, didn't he, a couple of weeks ago, popped his head above the parapet, but then hasn't said much other than they will make the Cameron fight. But Cameron's calling for it now. Apparently, they sent an offer. There's been a counter offer. Queensbury's offer's better than Boxer's offer. Liam's, I saw him dressed in a Where's Wally. So I'm sick at sight of him now. I'm getting bored with it. Look, Ben Whittaker, I don't feel wants to fight right now. He's got every right to fight when he wants to fight. So, look, there's an opportunity there for Simpson versus Cameron. Do you think the British Board of Boxing Control would mandate Cameron as a challenger for the British, being that he's boxed at a higher level at light heavyweight and he's the former Commonwealth champion, I believe, at middle. Am
I
I
think
wrong there?
No, you're right about that. I think the reality is Steed Woodall was his mandatory. This will be a voluntary. So if he chooses to fight Liam,
That's what I mean. Do you think they'll let him when I said mandate, I didn't mean mandatory. I meant, do you think they will let him box? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's a fight to make for me then.
Oakwell's rumoured to be in June. We need the end of the football season.
I think he said, didn't he say last night, Callum, that they'd given him permission to fight in the summer there?
Yeah, but obviously if Barnsley get into the playoffs and it's being used.
Sorry, he said that with a straight face.
It will most likely be June, won't it? So look, we'll get Callum out hopefully at the start of June. So then, if he wants to wrap up British belt this year, he can do that by November, December time. Caroline, Albert Hall. I'm not saying it anymore until I see her on that poster with Terry Harper opposite her. That will be when I next speak about it. But she has to be, from a marketing point of view as well, a Londoner on that card. Because at the moment, you've got a bird from Liverpool and a bird from Wales fighting in London.
He said bird, not me.
Mr. Neutral, good evening.
Evening, Mr. Neutral.
You get my sentiment. That's how it's being sold. It needs some London talent on there. And the best female talent in world boxing at the moment is Caroline Dubois. British is Caroline Dubois. Get her on the card.
Yeah, I mean, Ben's got a small stable, but he's got some talent within that small stable. The problem is he needs to be consistent in getting them decent fights on decent shows because, boxing's a fickle game. You let the contracts run down and they'll be gone. The prize fighters ultimately, and they want the best fights with the biggest purses. And at the moment, Ben is skating on thin ice with Sky by putting on these shows and not being there and stuff like that. So he needs to be very, very, very careful. I know the Saudi money's there, and I know it's easy to get big fights made for big bucks, but not for everybody. So yeah, it's an interesting. It's going to be an interesting next couple of weeks and months for Boxer. They've got as you said, they've got Azim going out soon. Lipinets, I think if he beats him, then he's got to be looking at possibly world titles thereafter. Mr. Neutral with a comment here. I think it's about Dubois. Dubois was sensational. We'll have to spend some money to get the Harper fight. I mean, yeah, it was always going to have to spend decent anyway. I don't think it'll be as hard as people think to make. I think Terry wants it, and I think she's got to believe she can win that fight, as well as Caroline will also think she can win that fight. I think we will see that fight this year. Sooner rather than later.
I think we see. I get what Neutral's saying. It's another world champion, so there's going to have to be a bit of money to get, a unification fight across the line. But I think it's relatively easy to make. Steffi Ball will back Terry Harper all day long. He will. We know the type of character he is, and he's fantastic. He'll believe that it's an opportunity too good for Terry to turn down, probably based on thinking that Caroline's too young and hasn't experienced what Terry has. But look, we could sit here, hypothetically planning a fight card till the cows come
We
out.
don't know, do we? We don't know.
The most difficult promoter to do it with is Boxer, because you just don't know what they're going to put out card to card. That's the reality.
No, but ultimately, it was a decent first show back for Boxer. It was an easy watch because it was fairly quick. We weren't having main events at 11:30. A little bit too quick for my liking. I like to see main events towards 10 o'clock. I think 9:30, 10 o'clock is probably a perfect time. There's a reason why, shows like Match of the Day and stuff are on at 10:30 because you get traffic. Basically, people are sat down in front of the TV. But no, look, it was a good first show back. The champions have kept their belts. There's bigger and better shows to come this year from Boxer, I believe. So yeah. Thanks for joining us, everybody that joined us. I don't think there's much more to speak about on that card, really, is there? I think we've covered most of it. It was
mate.
It was over pretty quick.
It was over pretty quickly, and we spent more time talking about future fights on the card, if we're being honest. So yeah, I think we've done enough, mate. But boxing's back in the game. We've got a nothing week this week, which is a shame. But then we've got on the 24th Neuer Inoue, on the 25th Dalton Smith, and
it's coming.
Andy Cruz, it's coming. We just need to get through this week.
Yeah, I think we've got some UFC cards coming up as well. I think we've got some big MMA cards coming up, so you'll see.
We're doing UFC this weekend because it's the first number card of the year. Yeah, we'll be back over with Sam doing that.
Yeah, we've got some big UFC. So, yeah, keep your eyes peeled. There'll be no punches pulled, I think, Wednesday this week. Not sure yet. I don't think we've confirmed that. But you'll see myself, Liam. You'll see me again later on this evening. You'll see me and Liam again later on this week. Thanks to everybody that joined us. Hawkan, Mr. Neutral, everybody that's interacted, like, comment, shared, and subscribed. Thanks again, Liam, for joining me on this dark, dank, icy, where I am, and snowy Sunday evening. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you soon. Keep punching.